Our next speaker you've already heard so much about in the course of this morning, I feel I hardly need to tell you any more. He's a professor of computer science at the University of Southampton, co-developer of a single online access point for non-personal UK governmental public data, and just over a year ago he was appointed to the Public Sector Transparency Board. Please welcome Professor Nigel Shadbolt.
Well, yes, a lot is happening. I really loved the last presentation because it was 9 minutes and 17 seconds, and also it had a very profound truth. Simple ain't easy, but it's a lot better than the alternatives. Okay, so they also say, I've got too many slides, they say 17 slides a second is a film. Okay, so you'll have a slight filmic experience, but I'll get through it in less than 10 minutes. Okay, so what I want to tell you about, of course, is how we have come from a situation where 2 years ago, when we tried to put information together to produce what we called the postcode paper, this was a little UK attempt to show public sector information unified around the postcode. Over 60–70% of the material in our postcode paper in the Guardian building was illegally published against licenses that were restrictive. That act of piracy, in a very short amount of time, has been realized into a single site where your postcodes are free, unrestrictedly available for use, and is the basis of tying a whole range of other free information together. This is the future. This is inspirational. We've seen these examples. We all know about them. Location at the back of public good applications. It's a powerful narrative which has got top-level political backing in this country. It's fortunate. Tim and I began the work with Gordon Brown, with the last government in UK government, but it's been taken on by the coalition government. Francis Maude is running the Transparency Board, but David Cameron, very committed to this whole principle. And the rhetoric is moving from transparency to a speech in which George Osborne refers to the open data being, we want the UK to be a leading open data country in the world for growth. Now, how does this work? Well, it's worked in this country because not only we have top-down leadership, we've had bottom-up activism. And in the world in which you live, you'll all be aware of the Mind Societies, the Open Knowledge Foundation. I was at their meeting in Berlin just yesterday. These are people who have a very different view about how and whether and if you should get data out there simply. Keep it simple. Keep it simple is hard, but actually it's easier if you've got a bunch of people trying to do it at the same time. So a race helped us a lot in the UK, a race with the US and others. We're now in a situation where we're seeing open government. You can't move for open government data initiatives. Cities, regions, nation states. In fact, when you look at them, the pins on the map start on that map, of course, where you can tell probably what that map comes from. But that map shows you the kind of a real wealth of initiatives, particularly in the European context. Doesn't mean they're all delivered and operational yet. In fact, many of them are a glimmer in the eye and have yet to tackle the thorny issues of getting the data out. Now, when you argue for this, and when we've argued for it, the narrative changes. It might be that they want to hear that you can improve public services by publishing data on infection rates in hospitals or the transport delay rates in your transportation system. It could be that it's to do with actually creating an efficient administration by abolishing vexatious freedom of information requests. It could be to increase the value, both economically or at the civic society level. We have applications now around the world, in our own experience in the UK, that show that these applications can be built. They can be built because if you have the courage to release this data simply, other people will build applications. Bill Joy famously said that probably all the smartest people in the world don't work for you. Okay? Right? And we have some great people working for us, but there's probably a smarter person out there. When Tim gave us the very simple standards for the web, his premise was that you put your pages up there and other people will find a use for them that you could never have imagined. Unanticipated reuse. And governments are the least able to understand, usually, the opportunity in their data. So, publish it. And if you're brave enough, you publish data that matters, whether it's spending data as a government, or where the crimes are happening across the entire country, or what the energy consumption is, or what your senior civil servants get paid and who they report to. This is really changing stuff. And the really important thing, if I had to look back over 2 years and say what was the thing that we had to do that made the biggest difference, it was the open government license. The move from a crown copyright that only really worked on documents to a license for data. There are versions available from Creative Commons. This license says one very simple thing. Don't do it for ill. Don't use the data for bad, but anything else you can do. There is no other restriction on it. And if you put any restriction on open data, you will kill the innovative opportunity in that data by a very significant amount. Now, this isn't easy because you really have to let go. And we still see, for all of the success we've had, irritating license restrictions in all sorts of ways. There are templates out there. They're not hard. Simply grab one and be brave enough to keep it simple. And then, of course, the decision is where you set the barrier. Where do you set the freemium model to say some of this can be free and some of it will be charged for? But when we mean free, we don't mean a bit free. We mean free and open. We've also actually realized, of course, that all of this is not about an IT project. Open data isn't an IT project. It's about policy and organizational change. So the public data principles, and these are some of them that we have on our site, are crucial. Data formats. So, of course, Inspire is all about this, and you have labored long and hard and are working really hard on these issues. And it may seem like we're just being naive to the point of idiocy, to come along and say, yeah, you can keep it really simple. But when I mean simple, I mean when Tim Berners-Lee puts his 5 stars chart up there, PDFs get 1, of course, something that it's hard enough for you to read, let alone a machine. An Excel format would get you a couple of stars. Comma-separated value, CSV, open non-proprietary format, get you 3. And you don't have to go the whole journey and produce RDF or some ultra-complex format. If you would give the objects of interest a web address for that piece of data, a URI, you can actually transform the information space. It's a simple set of principles. We have design documents for them. And in the UK, our entire administrative geography is now expressed as URIs. Whether it's postcodes or wards or regions, they are expressed. That means there is a web address, as there is here, for a particular place that is a unique data authority reference. And we have URIs. If you're going to create them, use and share them for our schools, our civil servants. So the post itself now has a persistent identifier. Or we have them for our ministers even, Theresa May, and the bus stops they doubtless use to get to one place for another. That actually this infrastructure, simple ain't easy, but this is powerful stuff. Now, we know a lot about how to do this, and once you have them, of course, we can begin to use the new emerging standards on the web, the so-called Web of Linked Data, in really imaginative ways. This is some work from my own team where we are providing services to notice that the Statistics Authority district URI is the same as an Ordnance Survey one, and how the containment relationships would or wouldn't work, and how you can backlink from this particular identifier to a whole bunch of other resources that are open and available to use. And once you do that, you can join the greater web of open data, and your data gets richer because you've got some unanticipated other links that make your description of this bus stop even more interesting than you could have imagined. Where's the closest coffee shop? Where's the etc., etc. Or indeed, what's the local robbery rate near this bus stop. And then you start to get to real applications that matter, because guess what? That sort of stuff will cluster around location. Now there's more to come. There's more to come, as we've heard, at the European level. There's more to come from our government in terms of some very significant announcements next week about new sets of data to be released. Cities, businesses, science, you and I will start to participate generating this. I have 15 seconds left. Oh no. But you've got to keep it simple, and keeping it simple means open licenses, not a bit open, open. Open standards, public data principles, the community, you and your data. Because, as the quote of the week allegedly is, it is location, location, location. You are the key. It is the connective tissue of open data. So I've used the quote twice this week. Thank you very much. I'm 10 seconds over, sorry.